The restaurant industry is bleeding, and what you're about to learn will change how you see dining out forever. These aren't mom-and-pop shops fading quietly. They're household names where families made memories, now fighting for survival. Behind those familiar logos lies a brutal reality of debt, shrinking margins, and customers who have fundamentally changed how they eat. Right now, executives are making desperate choices that will decide which chains live and which collapse. Some are losing money on every customer. Others are drowning in debt so deep bankruptcy feels inevitable. Empty parking lots, idle servers, and shrinking portions aren't random. They're signs of an industry in free fall. The truth? Nostalgia can't pay rent, and brand loyalty can't cover payroll. 15 major chains are hanging by a thread, and some may vanish after just one bad quarter. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which restaurants are on borrowed time. Let's start with the chains that are already gasping for air. Number 1. Boston Market. Boston Market built its reputation on rotisserie chicken and the promise of home-style comfort food. But comfort doesn't pay the bills when you're drowning in lawsuits and hemorrhaging locations faster than you can count. The chain that once dominated mall food courts and suburban strip centers is now a shadow of its former self. Legal troubles have been piling up like dinner plates in a busy kitchen. Employee lawsuits over unpaid wages. Franchise disputes that have turned bitter and public. Health code violations that make customers question what's really happening behind those rotisserie ovens. Each lawsuit drains resources that should be going toward keeping restaurants operational. But the real problem runs deeper than legal fees. Boston Market's entire business model feels frozen in time. While competitors adapted to delivery apps and digital ordering, Boston Market clung to an outdated approach that assumed customers would keep walking through their doors. They didn't. The closures started quietly, a location here, another there. Corporate would issue statements about consolidating operations and focusing on profitable markets. But insiders paint a different picture. Franchisees are walking away from contracts rather than continue bleeding money. Locations are shutting down with little warning, leaving employees scrambling for new jobs. What's left of Boston Market feels like a restaurant chain in hospice care. The brand recognition is still there, but the infrastructure to support it is crumbling. When you're closing more locations than you're opening, you're not restructuring, you're dying. Number 2. Ruby Tuesday. Ruby Tuesday tells an even more devastating story. This chain didn't just struggle through recent challenges, it got obliterated. After filing for bankruptcy and closing over 600 locations, Ruby Tuesday went from a national presence to barely existing at all. The few locations still operating feel more like museum pieces than functioning restaurants. The casual dining model that made Ruby Tuesday famous simply doesn't work anymore. Families aren't gathering for lengthy sit-down meals like they used to. The salad bar concept that was revolutionary in the 80s feels outdated and unsanitary in today's health-conscious environment. Even the signature items that once drew crowds now seem generic compared to what fast casual competitors offer. Franchise owners who survived the mass closures report consistently declining sales. The customer base that kept Ruby Tuesday alive for decades has either aged out or moved on to newer concepts. Younger diners see the brand as irrelevant, if they recognize it at all. The most telling sign? Ruby Tuesday stopped trying to expand. When a restaurant chain gives up on growth and focuses solely on keeping existing locations alive, that's not a business strategy, that's hospice care. Number 3. Hooters. Hooters faces a different but equally serious challenge. The brand that built its identity around a specific type of atmosphere and service model is discovering that what worked in the past doesn't translate to today's cultural landscape. The provocative marketing and dining experience that once packed locations now feels outdated and problematic to many potential customers. This isn't just about changing social attitudes, though. That's certainly part of it. Hooters is struggling with the same fundamental issues plaguing other casual dining chains: high operational costs, intense competition, and customers who've found better alternatives. But unlike other struggling chains, Hooters can't easily pivot because its brand identity is so specific and culturally tied to a particular era. The wing wars have intensified dramatically. Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, and countless local establishments offer better wings, better prices, or both. Meanwhile, sports bars have evolved beyond what Hooters offers. Modern sports viewing experiences focus on technology, multiple screens, and premium food options rather than the Hooters formula. Traffic numbers tell the story corporate doesn't want to acknowledge. Foot traffic at Hooters locations has declined steadily for years. The lunch crowd has virtually disappeared. Even the traditional stronghold of game day traffic has weakened as customers migrate to sports bars that offer more sophisticated experiences. Number 4, Golden Corral. Golden Corral represents everything that's wrong with clinging to outdated concepts. The buffet model was already struggling before recent global events made communal food service feel risky and unappetizing to many consumers. Now, Golden Corral is trying to convince customers to return to a dining format that feels fundamentally at odds with current preferences. The economics of buffet dining have become nearly impossible to sustain. Food costs that were manageable when customers served themselves. Modest portions have exploded as ingredient prices soared. The labor-intensive nature of maintaining multiple food stations requires significant staffing even when customer volume is low. Insurance costs for buffet operations have increased dramatically. But the deeper issue is consumer psychology. The value proposition that made Golden Corral attractive, unlimited food for one price, no longer resonates with diners who prioritize quality over quantity. Health-conscious consumers view buffets with suspicion. Parents worry about cleanliness and food safety in ways they didn't before. Golden Corral's attempts to modernize, including enhanced cleaning protocols and modified service models, feel like putting bandages on a concept that may be fundamentally broken. When your entire business model becomes a liability rather than an advantage, survival requires more than minor adjustments. Number 5, TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays is perhaps the most shocking name on this list because of how quickly its decline accelerated. The chain that practically invented the casual dining experience, complete with flair bartending and an atmosphere designed for fun, is now closing locations at a pace that suggests panic rather than strategic planning. The corporate restructuring that followed has been brutal and relentless. Locations that once required reservations on weekend nights now struggle to fill half their tables during prime dining hours. The signature appetizers and cocktails that made Fridays famous feel overpriced compared to what competitors offer. Even worse, the fun atmosphere that was the brand's calling card now feels forced and artificial. Management has tried everything: menu overhauls that stripped away beloved items, campaigns that border on desperate, technology upgrades that feel like expensive band-aids on a severed artery. Nothing has worked because the fundamental problem isn't operational, it's relevance. Number 6, Red Lobster. Red Lobster's story might be the most heartbreaking because of how iconic the brand once was. The bankruptcy filing sent shockwaves through the industry, but the real damage happened long before lawyers got involved. This was a chain that defined special occasion dining for millions of families: birthday dinners, anniversaries, graduation celebrations. Red Lobster wasn't just a restaurant. It was where memories were made, but sentiment doesn't pay suppliers or cover lease agreements. The endless shrimp promotions that customers loved were financial suicide disguised as marketing genius. Every plate served at those promotional prices meant money flowing out faster than it came in. The seafood market's volatility made menu pricing nearly impossible to predict or control. The bankruptcy reorganization eliminated hundreds of locations and thousands of jobs. But it didn't solve the core problem. Seafood prices remain unpredictable and generally expensive. Customers have found cheaper alternatives or simply decided that splurging on lobster isn't worth the cost anymore. The locations that survived the bankruptcy are operating in a market that's fundamentally different from the one where Red Lobster thrived. Number 7, California Pizza Kitchen. California Pizza Kitchen emerged from its own bankruptcy with promises of innovation and renewed focus, but the reality has been far less encouraging. The casual dining pizza concept that once felt fresh and exciting now competes against fast casual chains that offer better pizza, faster service, and lower prices. CPK's attempts to differentiate through unique toppings and upscale ingredients haven't been enough to justify the price premium customers must pay. The kitchen nightmare extends beyond just pizza. CPK's diverse menu was supposed to appeal to different tastes within the same dining party, but it's created operational complexity that slows service and increases costs. Training staff to prepare everything from Thai chicken pizza to jambalaya pasta requires expertise that most locations struggle to maintain consistently. Location closures continue steadily, with corporate focusing on what they call strategic markets. But when every closure is described as strategic, it starts sounding like desperation. The remaining locations feel stretched thin, trying to serve too many different types of food to customers who increasingly have better specialized options available. Number 8. Perkins Restaurant and Bakery. Perkins Restaurant and Bakery represents the challenge of aging gracefully in an industry that rewards innovation over tradition. This chain built its reputation on all-day breakfast, fresh baked goods, and the kind of comfortable dining experience that appealed to older customers. But as that customer base literally ages out, Perkins hasn't successfully attracted younger diners to replace them. The bakery component that once set Perkins apart has become a liability rather than an advantage. Maintaining in-house baking operations requires specialized equipment, ingredients, and staff training that many locations can no longer afford. Meanwhile, customers can get excellent baked goods from dedicated bakeries, grocery stores, or coffee shops without committing to a full dining experience. Breakfast competition has intensified beyond recognition. Fast casual chains offer high-quality breakfast items with shorter wait times. Coffee shops have expanded their food offerings. Even gas stations now serve breakfast sandwiches that rival what sit-down restaurants provide. Perkins is fighting for relevance in a category where convenience increasingly trumps ambiance. Number 9. IHOP. IHOP's struggles reveal how even category leaders can stumble when market conditions shift rapidly. The International House of Pancakes dominated breakfast dining for decades, but that dominance is cracking under pressure from multiple directions. Rising ingredient costs have forced menu prices higher just as customers became more price-sensitive. The sit-down breakfast experience that IHOP perfected feels inefficient compared to grab-and-go alternatives. The IHOP rebranding stunt that temporarily changed the name to promote burgers backfired spectacularly. Instead of expanding the brand's appeal, it confused loyal customers and failed to attract new ones. The incident highlighted how desperately IHOP was searching for growth beyond its traditional breakfast stronghold, but the execution made the chain look unfocused and gimmicky. Franchisees are reporting consistently declining sales, especially during weekday breakfast hours when office workers who once provided steady traffic are now working from home or grabbing coffee and pastries from drive-thru locations. The weekend brunch crowd that kept many IHOP locations profitable has also weakened as competitors have elevated their breakfast game. Number 10. Applebee's. Applebee's has become the poster child for everything wrong with promotional-driven restaurant strategies. The constant stream of limited-time offers, value deals, and desperate marketing campaigns signals a brand that's lost confidence in its core offerings. When you're perpetually trying to bribe customers to visit, you're admitting that your regular menu isn't compelling enough to draw them naturally. The neighborhood positioning that once made Applebee's feel welcoming now makes it feel generic. Every strip mall and suburban commercial district has an Applebee's, but having locations everywhere doesn't create loyalty when those locations all feel interchangeable and uninspiring. The casual dining format requires more time and money than many customers want to invest for food that doesn't exceed what they can get elsewhere. Corporate messaging about revitalization and modernization hasn't translated into meaningful changes that customers can see or taste. Menu innovations disappear as quickly as they're introduced. Service improvements are inconsistent across locations. The brand feels like it's treading water rather than swimming toward any clear destination. Number 11. Chili's. Chili's faces perhaps the most challenging position of any chain on this list because it operates in the most competitive segment of casual dining. Mexican and Tex-Mex cuisine options have exploded at every price point and service level. Fast casual chains like Chipotle and Qdoba offer similar flavors with faster service. Upscale Mexican restaurants provide more authentic experiences. Chili's sites uncomfortably in the middle, not fast enough to compete on convenience, or distinctive enough to compete on experience. The famous baby back ribs and sizzling fajitas that built the brand's reputation haven't evolved meaningfully in decades. While competitors have innovated with new proteins, preparation methods, and presentation styles, Chili's menu feels frozen in time. Even the atmosphere, once lively and energetic, now feels dated compared to newer restaurant concepts. Brinker International, Chili's parent company, recently reported profit margins that haven't been this low in over a decade. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a picture of a brand struggling to justify its existence in today's dining landscape. When your signature items feel like relics and your competition is eating your lunch literally, survival becomes a daily battle rather than a long-term strategy. Number 12, Friendly's. Friendly's tells one of the most heartbreaking stories on this entire list. This isn't just another chain struggling with modern challenges. This is the slow death of childhood nostalgia itself. The ice cream parlor and family restaurant that created countless memories for generations of Americans is discovering that warm feelings don't translate into profitable operations. The Fribble milkshakes and ice cream sundaes that once made Friendly's special are now available in frozen form at every grocery store. Why drive to a restaurant and wait for table service when you can recreate the experience at home for a fraction of the cost? The magic that made Friendly's feel special has been commoditized and packaged for retail sale. Location closures have accelerated beyond what anyone expected. Entire regions that once had multiple Friendly's locations now have none. The remaining restaurants feel like monuments to a different era, serving customers who remember when going to Friendly's was an event rather than an obligation. Without younger families discovering what made the brand special, these locations are essentially counting down to their final day. The ice cream shop competition has evolved dramatically while Friendly's stood still. Artisanal ice cream shops offer premium experiences. Chain competitors like Cold Stone Creamery provide entertainment value. Even fast food restaurants now serve high-quality ice cream desserts. Friendly's doesn't offer anything unique anymore, just expensive nostalgia that fewer people want to pay for. Number 13, O'Charley's. O'Charley's represents everything wrong with trying to be everything to everyone. This chain attempted to bridge casual dining with upscale aspirations, creating an identity crisis that customers could sense from the moment they walked through the door. Are you a neighborhood bar? A family restaurant? An upscale dinner destination? O'Charley's never figured it out, and customers stopped trying to solve the puzzle. The menu confusion mirrors the brand confusion. Appetizers that belong in a sports bar sit next to entrees that aim for fine dining sophistication. The pricing reflects the upscale ambitions while the atmosphere suggests casual dining. This disconnect creates expectations that no restaurant could possibly meet, leading to consistently disappointed customers who don't return. Recent closure announcements have come in waves rather than individual decisions, suggesting corporate-level panic rather than strategic market adjustments. When you're shutting down multiple locations simultaneously across different markets, you're not optimizing operations. You're trying to stop the bleeding before you bleed out completely. The franchise model that once helped O'Charley's expand rapidly has become a millstone around the company's neck. Franchise owners are abandoning their agreements rather than continue operating at a loss. Corporate-owned locations aren't performing any better. But at least they don't have the added complexity of franchise relationship management while everything else falls apart. Number 14, Outback Steakhouse. Outback Steakhouse built an empire on the promise of Australian-inspired dining and premium steaks at accessible prices. But that empire is crumbling as customers realize they're paying premium prices for meat that doesn't justify the cost. The steakhouse market has bifurcated into truly upscale experiences that deliver exceptional quality and value-oriented options that focus on affordability. Outback sits uncomfortably in the middle, offering neither. The Australian theme that once felt exotic and fun now seems forced and gimmicky. Customers don't care about bloomin' onions and didgeridoo decorations when the steak arrives overcooked and the service feels rushed. The theatrical elements that made Outback distinctive have become distractions from food quality issues that the chain can't seem to resolve. Beef prices have created an impossible situation for mid-tier steakhouses like Outback. Premium cuts cost so much that menu prices must climb beyond what casual dining customers expect to pay. Lower grade cuts disappoint customers who associate steakhouse dining with quality beef. There's no middle ground that satisfies both profit margins and customer expectations. The closure announcements from Bloomin' Brands, Outback's parent company, have tried to frame location shutdowns as strategic optimization. But when you're closing profitable locations alongside struggling ones, the strategy starts looking like damage control. The remaining Outback locations feel like they're operating under siege conditions, knowing that one bad quarter could trigger the next wave of closures. Number 15. Denny's. Denny's occupies a unique position in this list because it's simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The chain has locations in virtually every American city, but many customers drive past them without considering a visit. Denny's has become background noise in the restaurant landscape, present but not particularly relevant to most dining decisions. The Grand Slam breakfast that built Denny's reputation feels quaint compared to what breakfast competitors offer today. Portion sizes that once impressed customers now seem excessive and wasteful. Quality levels that were acceptable when alternatives were limited don't meet current expectations for food prepared by professional kitchens. 24-hour service used to be Denny's secret weapon, drawing late-night diners who had few other options. But the late-night dining market has fundamentally changed. Food delivery apps provide access to dozens of restaurants at any hour. Gas stations and convenience stores offer hot food that rivals what Denny's serves. The monopoly on late-night dining has evaporated. Franchisees are reporting the kind of sales declines that make operating costs impossible to cover. Labor shortages have forced many locations to reduce hours, despite the 24-hour promise that differentiates the brand. When you can't deliver on your core value proposition, customers stop trusting everything else you claim to offer. The value equation that once made Denny's attractive has been destroyed by inflation and competition. Menu prices have climbed while food quality has remained static or declined. Customers can get better breakfast food at diners that cost the same or less. They can get faster service at chains that don't pretend to offer full restaurant experiences. Denny's doesn't win on any meaningful metric that influences where people choose to eat. What makes these failures so devastating is how preventable they were. These chains weren't blindsided. They ignored obvious warning signs while competitors adapted. Customer expectations evolved, but many clung to outdated models, assuming nostalgia and brand recognition would carry them through. That gamble backfired. The technology gap alone tells the story. Winning chains poured resources into mobile apps, delivery integration, and digital loyalty programs. Struggling ones treated tech as optional, believing diners would tolerate slow service and outdated systems. Instead, customers left for faster, more convenient options. Labor challenges exposed another weakness. Successful restaurants attract and keep staff with better pay, benefits, and culture. Struggling chains still treat workers as disposable. The result? Skeleton crews, slower service, more mistakes, and frustrated customers who don't return. Supply chain mismanagement only deepened the crisis. Thriving chains diversified suppliers and built flexibility. The laggards ignored the problem until shortages and price swings made it nearly impossible to serve consistent, affordable meals. That's not running a restaurant. It's managing a slow-motion disaster. Corporate leadership made matters worse. While franchisees and managers raised alarms about food quality, labor costs, and customer complaints, executives doubled down on cosmetic fixes. Millions went to confusing rebrands, hollow marketing campaigns, and clunky tech upgrades that didn't solve real problems. Meanwhile, thriving brands, Chipotle, Panera, Five Guys, kept pulling ahead. They invested in ingredients, staff, and customer experience, setting new expectations for speed, consistency, and quality. Mediocrity no longer cuts it. Customers won't forgive brands that stop trying. The pandemic didn't create these issues, it accelerated them. When economic conditions were better, mediocrity survived. Those days are gone. Today's diners expect more, and the chains that refused to adapt are now paying the ultimate price. The writing is on the wall, and it's written in red ink. These 15 restaurant chains aren't just struggling, they're staring down extinction. From Boston Market's legal nightmares to Denny's identity crisis, the signs couldn't be clearer. Rising costs, vanishing customers, and business models that belong in a museum have created a perfect storm that most of these brands simply won't survive. The brutal truth? Your childhood memories and nostalgic attachments won't keep these places alive. Neither will desperate promotional campaigns or corporate restructuring announcements. The market has spoken, and it's saying that mediocrity has an expiration date. If there's a restaurant on this list you still enjoy, don't wait for a special occasion to visit. That booth you love, those menu items you've ordered for years, that familiar atmosphere where you've celebrated life's moments, it might all be gone sooner than you think. Because in the restaurant business, once the lights go out, they rarely come back on. The industry is being rewritten in real time, and these brands are becoming footnotes in a story they once helped write. Don't say nobody warned you when your favorite spot becomes just another empty storefront with a for lease sign in the window.